You know those moments when your entire life shatters because of something completely random, like the universe just decides to destroy everything you've built? Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. I'm Mackenzie. I'm 32 years old, and I lost everything just because my son fell off a ridiculous playground set. I remember the exact moment my world collapsed. I was sitting at my desk in the insurance office, casually scrolling through TikTok between calls when Mark's name popped up on my phone. I almost ignored it since I was watching a hilarious video, but something urged me to answer. The second I heard his voice, I knew something was terribly wrong. He had this strange tremor in his tone, trying to sound normal but completely failing. "Hey, Mac! Quick question. What's Tyler's blood type again?" My stomach dropped. It literally felt like it sank to the floor. You see, I had managed to avoid any medical questions like that for 12 whole years. 12 years of carefully maintaining a system where I handled all doctor visits, managed every piece of paperwork, and took care of every single medical concern for our 3 kids. Mark was always too busy running his contracting business to deal with it anyway, so it worked perfectly, until that unfortunate Thursday in April. Why, what's going on? I tried to keep my voice steady, but it came out high-pitched and shaky. Deep down, I already knew it was over. Oh, he fell at school. Nothing serious, just needed a few stitches. They ran some routine blood work, and Mark paused, and I swear I could hear him piecing it all together in his mind. The nurse mentioned something strange. Tyler's blood type is impossible given mine. I sat there frozen, staring at the dull cubicle wall plastered with photos of our family. 3 kids, Tyler, Mason, and little Emma, all with Mark's brown hair. None of them actually his. "Mark, I can explain," I started, but he cut me off. Can you? Can you really explain how our son has a blood type that scientifically can't exist if I'm his father? Because I've been sitting here for an hour trying to make sense of it, and the only explanation I can come up with is one I really don't want to believe. I didn't say a word. What could I possibly say? Sorry, I've been deceiving you our entire marriage. Sorry, none of our kids are actually yours. Sorry, I plan to take this secret to my grave. I'm taking him home now, Mark said, his voice hollow. We'll talk when you get back. He hung up before I could respond. I just sat there, gripping my phone, watching as my carefully constructed life crumbled. All because Tyler had to go and fall off the monkey bars while I was stuck in a mandatory team meeting. If I had been the one to take him to the ER like I usually did, none of this would have happened. I would have known which questions to avoid, which paperwork to conveniently leave incomplete. I spent the rest of the afternoon sitting in my car in the office parking lot, trying to figure out what to do. Should I run? Pack up the kids and vanish before Mark got the paternity test I knew he would demand? Should I lie? Try to manipulate him into believing the hospital made a mistake. But I knew Mark. Once he suspected something, he wouldn't stop digging until he uncovered the truth. And that truth was about to destroy everything. The worst part, I wasn't even sure which of my flings had fathered Tyler. That phase of my life was a complete blur. The gym trainer, the guy from the bar, my coworker from my previous job. I never kept track because I never thought I would need to. I just assumed I'd never get caught. Looking back, I guess it all started when Mark landed that massive contract to renovate luxury condos downtown. He was working insane hours, gone before sunrise, home past midnight. I felt lonely. That's when I started going to the gym just to have something to do. That's where I met Connor, my trainer. He had these incredible arms and actually paid attention to me, unlike Mark, who was always too exhausted to even hold a conversation. It started with harmless flirting during workouts, then late-night texts, then private training sessions at his apartment. I won't lie. The secrecy was exhilarating. Mark was so absorbed in his work that he didn't even notice I was suddenly going to the gym 5 times a week. When I got pregnant with Tyler, the timing was close enough that I just let Mark believe he was a father. He was so excited about becoming a dad. Why ruin that? But then it became an addiction. The more Mark worked, the more I found myself seeking out other men. There was a charming bartender at this upscale bar downtown, a co-worker who had always hinted at wanting more than just friendship, random strangers from dating apps when Mark was away on business trips. I got better at hiding it, learning all the tricks, a burner phone, meeting far from home, keeping my story straight. 2 years after Tyler, Mason was born. This time, I was fairly certain the father was either the bartender or some guy I met at a hotel bar while Mark was away at a construction conference. Then came Emma, 3 years later. Definitely the result of a wild phase where I was partying at clubs with my single friends, telling Mark I was at a quiet wine night with the neighborhood moms. Each time, I simply let Mark believe they were his. He was always so proud, showing off baby pictures, beaming about being a father. The crazy part? I got away with it for so long that I started feeling invincible. I had a whole system in place. I knew exactly how to behave at doctor's appointments, which questions to sidestep, how to fill out medical forms. I even joined online mom groups to learn about genetic traits, so I could come up with believable explanations for any features that didn't match Mark's. Oh, they got that from my side of the family became my favorite lie. I wasn't even careful with birth control most of the time. Whenever I got pregnant, I simply calculated the dates and made sure to be extra affectionate with Mark around the right time, so he'd assume the baby was his. He never questioned it. Why would he? He trusted me completely. Plus, he was always so caught up in work that he barely showed up for doctor's visits, only attending the ultrasounds I invited him to and, of course, the births. The worst part, I don't even feel guilty about the affairs themselves. Mark was never there, always prioritizing work over me. What was I supposed to do? Sit at home alone every night? The only thing I regret is not being more cautious with the pregnancies. I should have stuck to guys who looked more like Mark, or at least kept better track of who I was sleeping with and when. But honestly, I never thought I'd get caught. I had convinced myself that this would remain my little secret forever. After that call from the hospital, Mark went eerily silent. It was the kind of quiet that felt more menacing than any outburst. He returned home from the emergency room with Tyler, carrying on as if nothing had changed. He acted completely normal, helping with dinner, assisting with homework, going through the bedtime routine like he always did. But he wouldn't look at me. Not really. I kept bracing for the explosion, for the moment he would lash out, shout, demand answers. But it never came, just an agonizing, suffocating silence. Days turned into a week. He left for work early, came home late, barely uttered a word. Then I started noticing small things vanishing. Important documents from his office, the kids' baby books, old medical records I had hidden away carefully. One morning, after dropping the kids off at school, he finally confronted me. I was mindlessly scrolling through Instagram when he entered the kitchen, his expression unreadable. Without a word, he placed 3 sheets of paper on the counter. "Do you know what these are?" His voice was so steady, so composed, it made my skin crawl. I knew exactly what they were: DNA test results. 1 for each child. "I got lucky, you know that," he said, his tone void of emotion. 1 stupid playground accident, and everything unraveled. 12 years of deception, destroyed by a single blood test. I opened my mouth to speak, but he cut me off. The irony is, now that I look back, all the signs were there. How you always insisted on handling every doctor's visit. How you got uneasy whenever medical forms came up. How you conveniently kept me out of half the prenatal checkups, claiming it was just routine stuff. He exhaled, shaking his head. God, I was such a fool. "Mark, please," I started, but what could I even say? Sorry I deceived you into raising 3 children that weren't biologically yours. Sorry I let you build a life around a lie. Asterisk, asterisk. He let out a hollow laugh, one completely devoid of humor. "You know what eats at me the most? All those times you complained about me working too much, how I wasn't around enough. And yet, I was working myself to the bone to provide for a family that wasn't even mine. Private schools, a beautiful home, vacations. Turns out, they were only your family. Mark, you raised them, you loved them. Stop. His voice sharpened, carrying an edge I had never heard before. Just stop. You don't get to justify this. You don't get to rewrite the story to make yourself feel better. He picked up the test results, folding them with an eerie precision, as if they were something sacred. I got lucky, he muttered again, softer this time. Lucky I found out now. Lucky I didn't waste another decade. Lucky I discovered the truth at all. I watched in stunned silence as he turned and ascended the stairs. I heard drawers opening, closet doors sliding. When he came back down, he carried a single suitcase, just one, like he was heading off on a short trip. The lawyers will be in touch, he said, heading toward the door. Don't call me. Don't try to explain. There's nothing left to discuss. I trailed after him, stepping outside barefoot in my pajamas, no longer caring what the neighbors might think. He climbed into his car, and for the first time, I saw him break. His forehead pressed against the steering wheel, his shoulders shaking violently. But he didn't make a sound. Not one. Then, after a moment, he straightened up, wiped his face, and drove away without looking back. The next few weeks felt like watching a bomb detonate in slow motion. At first, it was just whispers. Moms at school pick up glancing my way before quickly turning their heads. My phone buzzed nonstop with concerned messages from people I hadn't spoken to in months. The neighborhood Facebook group turned strangely silent whenever I posted anything. Then Mark's sister, Ashley, dropped the nuclear bomb. She wrote an extensive, rage-fueled Facebook post detailing how I had shattered her brother's life and scarred 3 innocent children. And to drive the dagger deeper, she included photos of the DNA test results. By that afternoon, my social media had become a battlefield. People I had considered friends were sharing the post, adding their own remarks about how they had always suspected something was off about me. Even my own parents sided with Mark. My mother, of all people, called me mentally unwell for what I had done. She kept repeating, "How could you do this to those kids? We raised you better than this." Hello? I was still their daughter. Weren't they supposed to have my back? The children started asking questions I couldn't answer. Tyler, at 12, was the first to piece things together. He found the DNA results in Mark's home office. Most likely left there intentionally. The school counselor called me in after Tyler got into a fight with a classmate who had taunted him, saying Mark wasn't his real dad. Mason, my quiet middle child, withdrew completely. He stopped eating dinner, barely spoke. And Emma, my baby, kept asking, when is Daddy coming home from his trip? Then came the financial catastrophe. Mark cut off all our credit cards. His lawyer sent a cold, legal notice stating he had no obligation to support children that weren't biologically his. Tuition bills piled up. The country club revoked our membership, and even my job turned hostile. Turns out, sleeping with co-workers and falsifying paternity records doesn't sit well in a professional environment. They edged me out under the guise of corporate restructuring. As if that wasn't enough, Ashley, my now ex-sister-in-law, kept making these oh-so-thoughtful social media posts about Mark's healing journey. She tagged all our mutual friends, our neighbors, anyone still speaking to me. She even detailed how he had started therapy, painting him as some tragic survivor. Look, I get it, I lied. About a lot. But he's the one who abandoned 3 kids who adored him. And then, the worst of it, Tyler's biological father came forward. Apparently, he still lived in town and recognized himself in the unfolding Facebook scandal. He messaged me, making it clear he wanted absolutely nothing to do with Tyler and to never contact him. As if I would. He wasn't father material then, and he certainly isn't now. I tried reaching out to Mark, but my number was blocked. I even showed up at one of his work sites, only to be informed that he had moved to another state, just packed up and disappeared. The only link I had left to him was through his lawyer, a cold woman in an expensive suit who looked at me like I was something unpleasant stuck to her shoe. Then came the final humiliation: DNA testing to determine the actual fathers. Mark's lawyer insisted on it, citing legal rights and child support possibilities. Do you have any idea how degrading it is to sit down and make a list of every guy you slept with over a decade ago? The results rolled in like dominoes falling. Turns out, Tyler's father was a married real estate agent I had hooked up with at a property showing. His wife found out through the court filings and erupted on social media, unleashing a tirade about homewreckers and karma. Mason's biological father, my old gym trainer, Connor, now a successful CrossFit owner in the next town over. And this was only the beginning of my downfall. He was engaged, and his fiancée called off their wedding the moment she uncovered the truth. But Emma's situation was the real catastrophe. Her father was some guy I met at a bar during a girls' night out. I couldn't even recall his last name until the DNA database linked us. The school meetings were unbearable. Tyler got into yet another fight when some kids passed around screenshots of the Facebook scandal. The principal recommended family therapy, as if that could mend everything. Mason's teacher sent home a stack of brochures about children in crisis, and Emma's kindergarten teacher kept giving me pitying glances at pickup, like I was some tragic case. My inbox overflowed with messages from strangers, some claiming to be the kids' real fathers, others just eager to berate me. My old gym had to disable comments on their Instagram because people kept dragging up the Connor situation. The real estate agency where Tyler's biological father worked had to issue a public statement about privacy and personal matters. The kids' biological fathers? Utter disappointments. Connor argued that he wasn't in a place to take on fatherhood and offered a laughable amount in child support. The real estate agent threatened to sue me for damaging his reputation, as if he had no role in this. And Emma's dad? He flat out denied everything until a second DNA test confirmed the truth. Then he vanished behind his attorney. Even my own sister, who I thought would at least try to understand, turned on me. She posted a long-winded message about praying for the children and how some wounds never heal. To make matters worse, she even started a support group for Mark, as if he was the only one suffering. Meanwhile, I'm the one left picking up the pieces. My kids barely sleep. They jump every time the phone rings, hoping it's their dad, and they break down in tears when they see happy families at the mall. The court proceedings were a nightmare. A room full of men in tailored suits debating parental rights and financial obligations while I sat there under scrutiny. Mark's lawyer meticulously laid out every mistake I had ever made, each affair, each deception, every fabricated doctor's visit. She even had a massive timeline mapping out my indiscretions, as if forcing me to relive my past through a PowerPoint presentation was necessary. That was a year ago. Now, I'm crammed into a tiny 3-bedroom apartment on the wrong side of town, the kind of place I used to drive past and feel sorry for the people who lived there. Karma, right? I had to sell most of my designer handbags just to afford the security deposit. The kids share rooms now, which they despise. Tyler and Mason bunk together, while Emma, being the youngest and the only girl, gets the smallest room. They miss their old bedrooms, their old belongings, but most of all, they miss Mark. I juggle 2 jobs now, a receptionist at a dental clinic during the day and online customer service at night. The child support from the biological fathers is laughable when it even arrives. Connor made exactly 2 payments before citing financial hardship. The real estate agent filed for bankruptcy to dodge paying. And Emma's father completely disappeared. Mark contributes nothing. His lawyer insists he has no legal obligation. Must be nice to just walk away without a second thought. My Instagram memories keep haunting me with pictures from last year. Our family trip to Disney, backyard cookouts, Christmas mornings filled with extravagant gifts. Now my feed is a collection of budget-friendly recipes and DIY hacks. I had to deactivate Facebook entirely. Too many mutual friends still posting updates about Mark's incredible new life. Apparently, He relocated to Colorado, bought a picturesque mountain cabin, and started his own construction company. He's thriving while I'm left to deal with the wreckage. The kids still ask about him. Emma draws heartbreaking pictures of our old family for art class. Mason refuses to play baseball anymore because Mark was his coach. But Tyler, that stings the most. Just last week, he told me he wants to change his last name to Marks when he turns 18, as if I'm not even his real parent anymore. Last month, I ran into Ashley, Mark's sister, at Target. She was shopping for her nephew's birthday party, a party my kids weren't invited to, despite growing up believing that boy was their cousin. She looked right through me like I was a ghost. Later that day, she posted something about choosing your family and protecting your peace. Real subtle. The irony of it all, if Tyler hadn't fallen that day, if Mark hadn't been the one to take him to the ER, if that nurse hadn't casually mentioned the blood type discrepancy, we'd still be living our perfect illusion. The kids would still have their dad. I'd still have my home. Everything would be intact. One random accident unraveled everything I had built. People keep telling me I should feel remorse, that I should regret what I did. But honestly, my only regret is getting caught. Yes, I lied. Yes, I was unfaithful. But I gave Mark 12 years of fatherhood. 12 years of joy, of love, of irreplaceable memories. He got to experience first steps, first words, school plays, baseball games. He got to be the hero, the perfect dad, the man who had it all. And sure, it was all founded on deception, but they were lies that kept everyone happy. Now, I'm stuck in a cramped apartment, feeding my kids off-brand cereal instead of the organic stuff they used to have, dressing them in second-hand clothes instead of designer sneakers, all because fate decided to shatter my carefully crafted secret in the most unpredictable way possible. They say the truth sets you free, but whoever said that never had to face the brutal reality of what happens when your carefully constructed web of lies comes crashing down.